And it's time for They Talk Funny, episode 19 with Andrew Evans, based out of Halifax. Andrew is here with me in the virtual studio. Let's say hello to Andrew. Andrew,
Hi,
how you doing,
everybody.
brother?
Good, and
I,
you?
I'm doing good. So sorry, are you flying over Halifax Harbor right now? What's all the water behind you? It's
Well, they said during the lockdown that you should learn a new skill. Take the time to learn a new skill. So I became a fighter pilot, and now I'm training the dudes behind me.
aha. Let's train them how to drink.
Mhm.
And you get the Halifax Mooseheads
Oh yeah,
hat on. So you,
yeah, I do.
yeah,
They
I'm wearing.
recommend a helmet in this F-16, but fuck that shit.
Yeah, you're a good Nova Scotia boy. So I'm just realizing I got like this curl thing happening out of the right side of my head. It's
Consider
it's
yourself
just
lucky. It means you have hair.
yeah. It's I haven't taken the razor. There's a reason why the top of the head is covered. Thanks for reminding me that I'm balding. Uh,
Are you? I never noticed if you are.
yeah, it's happening. It's happening. It's slow. It's the humid weather. Welcome. For those of you who are tuning in, we actually have people watching right now.
Oh,
So it's
okay. Hello.
you and I are catching up as old friends.
Yeah.
But we've got people who are watching. Anyone that's watching, say hello in the comments of either YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching, and we'll be able to put any questions that you have for Andrew online. And also, it's nice to know that you're there. So say hello. That's kind of good. Andrew is always a little bit how can I say, a little bit down on the idea that you have a certain level of fame, that you have a certain following. So yeah, see, look at that face he just made, just that little awkward face that just. What do you mean people follow me? You entertain people. You've traveled most all of this country. Have you not? Have you played British Columbia?
I have, yeah. I've played lots of places in BC. I've done Merritt and Golden and Fort St. John and Victoria and Esquimalt and Vancouver.
And, and
Yeah.
and considering that you're based in Halifax, I don't think that's a restraining order. I think there's been that much of a demand or appreciation for what you do right across the country. You perform for the troops, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, not overseas. I would love to do a show for them overseas, but I've done an awful lot. I've done most bases across the country. You know, Wainwright, and Shearwater, and Halifax, and uh, Borden, and Petawawa, all kinds of bases. Yeah,
Yeah, it's those are always been fun shows. I have to say. Uh, okay,
they're
so
my favorite. They're my
they're
favorite.
very
Yeah.
yeah. This is They Talk Funny, and part of the mandate is show we want to talk about not just comedy but comedy writing, and performance, and how things may have changed during COVID. So let's start it now. You've done a comedy now. You've obviously toured. You're a Canadian comic, and again, a recurring theme in this show has been the lack of a star system in Canada. So Canadian performers aren't really as recognizable as say their American counterparts. Um, but when it comes to writing, how do you set aside a certain amount of time every day or each week, or how do you approach the task of writing?
It's changed over the years. I've tried to become more disciplined about it, but to be honest, I don't have the time to go and work out the stuff I write. So the writing hasn't stopped, but the going out and trying out new bits at the open mics takes a back seat to making enough money to pay rent.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So you end up doing, I guess I'm more of a weekend warrior. I do more pro shows, and I feel bad when people pay $30 to come to a show trying out my 8 minutes of new fart bits or whatever.
Well, it's now the thing is, I mean, we all start out sort of writing on stage a little bit. That's something that I've encountered. Most people are saying here. Do you only really sort of finalize it when you get to the stage, or do you find yourself giving it more drafts before you're going out for those weekend shows?
It all kind of starts out as an idea that I
Mhm.
write down, and I loved Louis C.K. I had once listened. I was lucky enough to be in a Q&A with him, and he talked about how his writing worked. And he said he would write down an idea. And I was like, that's about what I do, write down an idea. And then you go work it out on stage. And he said, because there's something that happens that if you write too much down, It sounds like it's red rather than organic and funny. It seems red. And one day it'll come out pretty much the same every time you do it, but it never sounds red. There's something that happens when it goes down on paper and then back in your head and then back out.
You know what? Okay, there's probably not the only thing I'll ever disagree with Louis C.K. on, but it's there are methods that kind of help with that. I believe, especially when stage time is limited. Like he's in New York City, so he can hit 15
Right.
stages
100%.
a night if you really wanted
Yeah.
to. But like in Halifax or in Montreal, especially during quarantine, we don't have that option.
Right.
I believe in sort of writing it out, but to me, it's never just on the paper. And part of the art of stand-up comedy is to make it sound like you're just making it up as you go, which is
Absolutely.
a lot of that. So I'll take an idea, I'll write on it, and then I'll record myself talking about it, and then I will transcribe what I recorded.
Okay.
And to see where I could maybe shift some lines around or just get rid of the stuff that I'm going, this doesn't work, and just eliminate the chaff.
Right. I mean, it's different for everybody, right? Like I like to just put kind of an idea and then go talk about the idea. So I'll have maybe a punchline and then just go out and talk about it. And it's 9 times out of 10, it's awful the first time it comes out of my mouth, no matter what. But I know I can tell I'm on to something, and then try it again and try it again and try it again and try it again. And at paid shows, I don't want to put people through that. Now there's other people. My other, kind of my hero all time of comedy is George Carlin.
Yeah.
And everything he said was written word for word. His process was the complete opposite. It was every and, every the, every but was written.
Yes. Yeah. And like his earlier stuff, it sounded more organic, but the later stuff sounded more like a dissertation. Like it was relevant. It was funny, but I don't think it had that immediacy that you're striving for, that I'm striving for.
Yeah.
I think
you don't want to be saying funny things. You want to be a funny person.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to have the joke separate from you. You want it to have it as part of you. So like when people remember the punchline, they remember your voice saying it.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly it. That's about what it is about, is being an individual. That's something Jerry Seinfeld had said too. He said there's room for all of us. If you remember in the documentary Comedian, there's room for all of us. He said, you've got
except for Horny Adams. That's
there's room for all of us. And why is there room for all of us? Because we're all unique. And the best way to be unique is to be yourself, because nobody can be you. So just be you.
Yep.
And the more you are, the better the chance you have at making stuff work.
Exactly. And I do believe that you can sort of shortcut the system that you currently have right now, but I definitely appreciate, like, I've done a lot of writing on stage, and it's just trying to find ways to be able to duplicate that when you don't have access to stage time.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah,
you need an audience. I mean, guys here in Halifax are out there doing patio shows in people's backyard for the 5 people that are allowed to be around, and
yeah,
it's that kind of desperate need for feedback, immediate feedback. Is this working? Will it go somewhere?
There's been a proliferation of like I used to sit down with a friend or two and like we'd write and we'd bounce stuff off each other, and that'd be a good start for comedy. But now I'm seeing a lot of online stuff. Like one of the earlier guests on this is Scott Porteous, who does the workshop, and he does, like, it's a task writing workshop, and so everybody brings a bit with a topic that they have been assigned, and then they all. Have you done it yet or not?
I know. I mean, not. I don't even know Scott, but
neither do I, other than through that. Yeah,
15 years ago, that's what Brian Hope and Todd Van Allen, myself, and Dave Patterson would do.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I think it was Todd Van Allen's idea, and we would get together, I don't know, once a month or something like that, and we give each other assignments. It started off with just go and write what you think is funny, and then we would take turns. I would bring up, here's my idea, but I'm having a hard time with such and such. And then guys would give you ideas for tags or where it could lead or a suggestion here or there. And then you would take their suggestions, go home and work on it, and go on stage and work on it and make it even better. And it was fantastic. But you need the exact right group of friends for you to do that. It can't be any just 3 or 4 comics. It's got to be ones you respect their comedy, respect their opinions,
Who
and
understands you a little.
who understand you a little, but also, as good as their suggestions were, 95% probably I never took.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with the rejection too,
Mm.
right? Like I would always give the example of some words, no matter how good they are, no matter how smart they are or clever they are, or how well they fit in with a particular joke. Again, I go back to the more you are, the better it is. I don't use the word remiss. So if somebody suggests that I use the word remiss, it doesn't come out of my mouth right. I could use the word neglect, right? But there's something that's disingenuous about a specific word. I wouldn't say that, so I can't say that. And that's not a personal attack at somebody's suggestion, even though it might be a great joke. I can't take it. So you have to be able to have a great group of friends that you find funny, that find you funny, that like your writing, that you like their writing, and that can take a no 95% of the time without getting upset and butthurt about it.
Chris Finn
Love Chris.
had him do this, and he talked about learning sketch writing, going to sketch writing rooms, and learning to let go of material, like putting it out there. And if somebody suggested a change, not to be defensive or super argumentative, to just try to take what they said as a merit. But then again, that's not stand up. That's not coming from you.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. The sketch is other people's voices. Stand up is your own.
Yeah,
it's so personal, right? And that's what makes it hard and also rewarding. You know, you're up there when you're dying. It's you that's dying. You know, but when you're killing, it's you that's killing.
Yeah.
In sketch and improv, it's us. It's we that are dying or killing. You know.
When it's a band, it's us. When it's karaoke, it's that was a bad track.
Yeah.
This all right. So you're in Halifax. So Halifax is opening up a little bit more than well, Montreal is the Comedy Nest is just opening this weekend. So tomorrow is their first. I think tomorrow is their first show. And
this might be good for Canadian comics, because a lot of those headliners are Americans and probably won't be able to do that now.
For as long as the border remains closed, that's probably
that's going to be great for Canadian comics.
For Canadian comics, as long as we're not going to get hit with a second wave, another surge, right? There's no vaccine yet, so no one is anymore. Most people are not any more immune than they have been. I have a friend who's lost. Yeah, I have a friend who lost lung capacity. So he had COVID. He got better, but he's not better. He is. Really? He's got like a 30% loss to his lung capacity at this point in time.
Wow.
Which affects anything physical he does. He's a musician. Singing is not going to be something he'll be doing much anymore.
Oh wow, what a shame.
Yeah, he's mainly a guitarist, so it's not as bad. It's not like he was a lead singer and only a lead singer kind of thing. But yeah, so this is this is a scary, like until we have a way around this. I mean, there's a lot of people that are thinking, oh, the government's opening things up, then it mustn't be a problem anymore. And
oh no, it's a problem. And we hadn't had any new cases in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think we had one new case, but I got an invite from a friend to go and do karaoke. And I'm like, I am not going and passing around a common microphone that 30 strangers have spit on just because karaoke is back.
Exactly. For those of you who are just joining us, I saw a spike in the numbers. Say hi, drop a comment in the comment box. I'm talking with Andrew Evans about comedy, life in the times of COVID. And he's based in Halifax. I'm currently based in Montreal. The Comedy Nest is actually, they've listed all the things that they're doing to to make it safer for audience and performers. So they've dropped their capacity by less than a third. So they're only fitting 50 people inside, which is going to hit their bottom line. And that's the other thing. When you were saying, hey, it's going to be great for Canadian performers. The club is making less money, so they're probably going to be asking performers to take a little bit of a hit as well.
Right.
Though I haven't heard that said yet. They're operating on a multiple mic system, so each performer is bringing up their own mic to plug in.
Okay, that's a good idea.
And I don't know if they're working with 2 or 3 mics just so they can have more time to clean them when they're carried off stage.
Right.
There is also the staff are all going to have gloves and the face shields and just trying to protect everybody as best they can. People can only sit at tables if they're
In the same
habitating.
household or something.
If they live together, kind of thing. And like the place I think is over 170 occupancy, and they're only accepting 50 people in. So,
okay. How do you feel about performing again? Going out in public and performing again? Where are you on that?
I said no. I got asked to come out this Wednesday for like the first show, the Canada Day show, and I said I thank them very much for thinking about me, but I chose not to. I'm anxious to get performing again, but I was on one of the last film sets that was not in film sets, TV sets that were shut down in the province of Quebec, and noticed how poorly the guidelines were being followed by everyone. There's some people who are being very rigid, who are trying to control everything. And then there's other people that are going, oh, it's just a flu. And they're not paying attention to any kind of safety details.
Those people are in every Tim Hortons, every mall, every Walmart. Same thing. That's right. There's a lot of people keeping the 6 feet, wearing masks, being polite, and other people going, fuck it. I don't care. And I care. I'm not particularly worried about getting it myself, not because I liken it to the flu, but because if I get it, I live in a building where 1/3 of it are people over 60 with pre-existing conditions.
Yeah.
My dad is 68 and diabetic and had triple bypass. My stepmother has COPD. My step-grandmother is still alive in her 90s. This is not a good thing for me to be walking around asymptomatic with, right? And so I'm a little bit worried about it, even though we've only had 1 case in Nova Scotia in 3 weeks.
Yeah. And another thing, like Montreal, I can't imagine what it would be like to be there, but Montreal has half the population of Quebec. We also, like, people point to Montreal, go, oh, if you get so many cases, well, we have half the population of Quebec. We also have half the cases, so it makes sense that this small of an area, and it makes me think that the people who are outside thinking, oh, we're not in Montreal, we're so much safer. But there's a lot of people who don't realize that they're immune suppressed. If anyone who's ever had a cancer treatment, ever had chemotherapy, your immune system is permanently screwed. Right. So anyone who's had chemotherapy is in danger. A number of antidepressants, if you're on antidepressants, in that big list of side effects that you get that big paper from the doctor the first time you were prescribed them, lists that you are immunosuppressed.
So
and a lot of people don't
stand-up comic.
Pretty much. So all those people sharing microphones. So that's the other thing. I mean, I'm no longer on antidepressants, not because of COVID, just I found a different way. And yeah. Hi, Andrew. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing well, Paul. This is what every comedy conversation turns into anyway.
We're just worried about the future, worried about the present, or worried about the drugs that we have to take.
Three comics in the van have anxiety issues, and 3 have depression issues.
And there's only 2 people there.
Yeah.
So one has multiple personality disorder. There is now the Halifax comedy scene, like you said, there's people who are doing the backyard shows.
Yep.
Like even those backyard shows, they at least they don't need a microphone.
No.
I know being able to pull off little vocal effects. I like the microphone is a tool that you can use
Right.
as a performer. So there's some people who like to
For me, it's a
hold the
sookie
tricks.
blanket. It's like a bottle of water
Yeah,
or a bottle of beer. It's a sookie blanket. It's got nothing to do with what it does for
yeah.
me as much as it is. I feel foolish without it. I couldn't do a lapel mic. They asked me when I did my Comedy Now, do you want a lapel mic? No.
I won't know what to do with my hands.
Ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just going to throw this picture back up just because of what you just mentioned. There's you've got you've got the microphone, you've got the firm grip on that, and you've got a very similar grip onto the beer bottle.
Yes.
I think it just shows you how like unconscious you are of holding it, and just when you miss it, when it just puts a little bug in the back of your head that something's wrong.
Oh yeah, and it was when I did my Comedy Now as well. They wouldn't let me have anything, and I'm like, I don't need a beer. I'm not looking to get drunk on stage, but a bottle of water. And they're like, no, for continuity purposes, for editing, you can't have it. And I'm like, what? If you get thirsty, yell cut, and we'll come out and give you some water. I'm like, no, we're not going to interrupt the flow of the show. Number one. And number two, it's not about being thirsty. It's something to do with it's a sookie blanket.
Yeah, it's this is all right. I actually worked for Sandra Fair and Associates, and just a general PA running around during the earlier seasons of Comedy Now, and I really got the feeling that they didn't understand live performance, and that how many seasons did that run? Do you feel free of saying anything like that? I don't know.
Oh, sure. No, they were great to me. They were wonderful to me, and they gave me an opportunity when there was that was the biggest opportunity in the country. I'm so thankful for it. But that doesn't mean that there weren't issues that were quite obvious. I mean, how many people would say, oh my God, the canned laughter. Yeah, we don't need it. If you just mic'd up the room, which I thought they did, and just let it go as is, it would have been amazing because it was a great night that night. And the canned laughter hurts it. And the other part of it too is that
different jokes get different types of laughter.
Right, exactly. And it's so important. I watched my special and there are laughs where there's not supposed to be any. Right? Yeah. That they're putting them in setups, and people at home are watching them going, that wasn't funny. I agree. It wasn't. And it wasn't supposed to be funny. Right? Oh, they had to put laughs in. No, they didn't. Just let it go like a club. I mean, you were talking about your musician friend, and I dabbled in music a little bit. And it's called dynamics. You want ups and lows, and you want to build some tension and pop the balloon. And I actually asked them, am I allowed to help you edit this? Am I allowed to not help you edit, but like be there during the editing? And they're like, no, can't do that. I'm like, well, can we just leave these laughs? No, can't do that. Well, why do you have to do the canned laughter? So I asked, and they said, because when people are changing the channel at home, we want them to hear a laugh as they're changing channels so that maybe they'll stop.
Russell Peters was responsible for most of that canned laughter.
What?
Yeah. The early seasons of Comedy Now, Russell Peters was the warm-up act. And it was before he broke.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And so they recorded the laughter. Now, there was also was there a huge edit in your set? Because there are examples, and I'm trying to remember who they are now, where callbacks appear in the television before the original.
Yeah, that happened to be on a radio taping, but not in Comedy Now. In a radio taping. So if you probably know my old act, had a loaf of bread and a hammer, the duck.
Yeah.
And then I also did a callback to that, and it's about terrorists. All they need is a loaf of bread and a hammer. Well, they put the terrorist part in, but they didn't put the duck part in, and it's just like, why are you Using a loaf of bread and a hammer to catch terrorists. And I don't know where that taping is, but it's out there somewhere. There's a radio taping out there somewhere where they have the second half of my
Where they have the
callback, but
callback
not
with
the
the original
first,
yeah.
not the original joke. Yeah.
Oh,
They do. You need a stand-up. Listen, see, hockey's got it right. All the analysts are ex-hockey players. All the presidents, the GMs, the coaches, they're all ex-hockey players. Some of them better than others, but they're involved in hockey and have been for years. So they didn't have to be an NHL player either. They don't have to be. Maybe they were a college player or something, but they played hockey. And it would be really nice if, the camera guys and the lighting people and the, production staff and the producers and set designers and all of those folks dabbled in comedy at least.
The very first year at the Halifax Comedy Festival, everybody who worked for it came from theater.
Very different.
Yeah, which is very different. Now, I don't think that they need to be stand-up comics, but I think they need to have a love for it. I mean, did you ever interact with Brent Chies?
No, I haven't.
Okay, but do you know who he is? Or
yes, yep, with Just for Laughs, yep.
Yeah. As a person, he's somebody I actually highly respect, and he has a good understanding of stand-up comedy. He has no desire to do it himself. And when he was in charge of, he used to be from scouting the acts to doing the edits for the TV show, and I believe in his knowledge, and I believe in I would trust him to edit whatever, just because of how he approached all of that and how he had such a love for it.
There's a guy out here that I would suggest that to. His name's Adam Langer, and he's put together some comedy shows, and he's worked like you had on behind the scenes at Halifax Comedy Fest and that kind of stuff. And he has a real love and appreciation for stand-up, and he listens to comedians.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? Can we do an intermission? Should we do an intermission? What do you think of the seating in this place? What do you think of the lighting? He has a real desire to make it good. And he listens to the talent, and he's able to put together great shows, and he's the back end business guy that can sell tickets and advertise. And because he's a fan, he's got that enthusiasm to sell it as well, but he doesn't do it himself. So there's lots of room for people like that as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's not just the stage and the spotlight when it comes to comedy. There's so much. Well, let's talk about a little bit about the Halifax comedy scene. I think you've just become aware that we're probably going to do a group chat with a bunch of Halifax comics about the scene. I don't know if you saw that message yet. If not, surprise.
Yes. I did see the message quickly. Didn't read it too much, but I saw who was tagged in it. So yeah, I saw a round table. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just I don't know if I'll do it as an auxiliary to They Talk Funny, or just a live stream for the sake of doing a live stream and talking about comedy in Halifax. For you, what's the scene like in Halifax now? Just after the lockdown kind of happened, you lost Andrew Vaughn, who was a promising young comic. I still consider I'm old, so everybody's a young comic, but he was beginning to tour. He had his CD had come out.
Yeah, Too Fat to Go Kurt.
Too Fat to Go Kurt,
which I had a hand in naming.
Yeah,
we were at Atlantic Playland, so I used to go out with him for a coffee. Every single Tuesday, we would go for coffee and then lunch somewhere every single Tuesday.
Because you want to hang out with somebody who gets you.
Yes, exactly. Yes. That's exactly it. And we would be, and nothing was off limits. We could talk about fucking anything. And we were both real comedy nerds. So it was just 3 hours of talking about comedy every single Tuesday. It was great. He was as obsessed with it as I was. And I kept telling him, you remind me of who I was 10 years ago, right? At this point. So anyway, we ended up at Atlantic Playland, which is out here in Halifax. It's go-karts and batting cages and water slides and arcade and bumper boats and stuff like that. And I said, we got enough tickets left. Let's do some go-karting. And he goes, I can't. I go, what do you mean you can't? I'm too fat to go kart. And I just doubled over and I said, that can't be a real thing. And he says, it is. And I said, you're too fat to go kart? He said, yeah. I said, that's got to be the name of your album. And it was.
Yeah. And that Too Fat to Go Kart is available. Is it available on iTunes?
Where did he put it? I think he put it on CD Baby.
CD Baby. Okay. And he gets a little bit of traction on Sirius XM, I believe.
Yeah, he does.
With that as well. So he's how old was he?
35?
35. And
34, 35?
What kind of an impact did Andrew have on the comedy scene in Halifax?
Honestly, and this is no hyperbole. So when you were here in Halifax, you were the scene. I mean, you need other people here to participate in it, right? But when you started Gingers, you were the scene. You gave people. There was no comedy before Paul Ash started Gingers. It didn't exist, and the Comedy Dogs, it didn't exist. And Andrew was that guy years later when comedy did exist at Beerley's and it existed at Gus's for years already. Because of Gingers, it had grown and evolved and all that kind of stuff. And Andrew was the Paul Ash. He was the glue. He was the pillar. He hosted One Room Weekly for years, but he was in every room every night. And that is not something I can say probably about anyone else in Halifax. There are guys who do it a lot, and ladies that do it a lot. But I think Andrew was the only one kind of doing it 5-6 nights a week, 2 shows in a night if he could. And he was the one trying to mentor the young guys with, show up on time, be professional, do your time, look for the light. He had no problem telling people, too long, too slow, whatever. He was the guy that shaped the young comics and gave space for the old guys to do it too.
Yeah.
He was both a student and a mentor, and towards the end of his life, he became more of a mentor. Because there were at that point there were more people younger and newer to comedy than him, compared to say 7 years ago when I first met him, and he was one of the sort of newbies in the scene. But when I ran my room at Clay West, which is kind of outside of the downtown core, he was the guy that was there every single week, every week. Nobody else was there every week, and he would pick up guys from the hotel, the Yucks guys from the hotel, and drive them to Clay West. He would go and pick guys up. I mean,
he lived outside. Yeah,
he did for a while. He lived in Rawdon, which is, I don't know, half hour out for a while, and he was downtown for a while. And for the last 5-6 years, or 4 or 5 years, he was close. He was in town.
Okay.
But yeah, he would come from Rawdon and pick people up.
Yeah, and then drive out to Clayton. Yeah.
And then drive out to Clayton Park. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was dedicated and obsessed with comedy. Yeah. And he was the guy that would be there from beginning to the end. He wasn't one of the guys that would drop in, can I go on early and then leave? He was there the whole show.
You can tell me you don't want to answer this, but I never ever heard of the cause of his passing.
I don't know it myself.
Okay.
I don't know it myself, but we assume he went to bed with chest pains and didn't wake up, so we're assuming a heart attack or something along those lines. But I don't know. He's
I mean, too fat to go kart, but he was beginning to get into better shape. He had started eating a little bit better, and everything from what I was able to follow and see. Yeah. So
I had lots of conversations with him too, saying I've lost too many comic friends already. I don't need to lose another one.
Yeah.
And so if anybody out there needs help with any of that kind of stuff, ask for it. Ask Ben Miner. He'll help you.
Yeah. Yeah. Ben is it's been an amazing transformation. Yeah, I know I'm approaching that point where I really need to, and the COVID confinement is not helping because I'm not out as active as I once was.
None of us are, but you know, I told him the story because he's a Montreal comic, Jocko. I told him the story about
Yeah,
Jocko. You know,
yeah, Jocko Alston for
yeah,
those who want to look it up. Yeah,
he was a great guy and left behind a young girl, and I
yeah.
don't think he was dancing on stage and stuff, and he wasn't.
No,
Yeah,
he.
I wouldn't consider him obese, but he
Yep.
was young, early 40s. You know, yeah, and like for whatever reason, when you're 35, you think it can't happen to you.
Yeah. Uh, no, I think it would do Andrew Vaughn a good thing to be an inspiration rather than a lesson.
100%.
You know, he was an amazing person who loved comedy and went out and did it. He got that album, you know, made. You pushed him into to touring, to going and playing Absolute in Ontario. You know,
Yeah, I told him that he's doing everything the exact right way,
yeah,
hosting his own room, showing up on time, doing his time, always writing new stuff. He was doing everything the right way. And I said, if I can get you into a club, I'm going to get you into a club because you deserve it. You've earned it.
yeah,
And I had never, and still haven't. He's the only recommendation I ever gave to Absolute, because I don't want to be the guy that just starts recommending people and then they tear apart the condo or they shit the bed
yeah,
for a weekend and now I can't recommend anybody. So he was the only recommendation I made in 12 years, the
mm,
only one, and he deserved it. And he
yeah,
was going to pass on. I told him the only thing I want you to do is pay that forward. Find somebody you think deserves it, and is doing everything the right way, and you put that recommendation in. But you'll have to be a headliner first.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now you, all right. Let's. Okay, Absolute has a definite flavor to it. Montreal has a different flavor. You actually have a great description about when you first came to Montreal to play for the first time.
Oh, you remember that, man?
Yeah, it's a great story because every city sort of has its own flavor. Toronto is different from Ottawa. Ottawa is different, and I part of that is from the comedians and how they teach the audience, and what the audience begins to expect then sort of teaches the comedians. And so when people are in just one scene, that's all they sort of learn or follow by.
Yeah.
Some cities like New York can have different kind of cliques, so you get different flavors in different parts of New York or different stages. But when you first came to Montreal, you had a joke that was killing for you in Toronto, and then
And then it laid flat, and it was in Montreal, and I was like, what's going on? I'm not going to say that I was big-headed about it or never thought that had things to learn, but I was like, you have that one joke that just always works. It gets you out of trouble. It's you can use it as a closer, as an opener, that you can save it until you get into trouble and they don't like you and pull it out. And it always works. And it was always a 9 out of 10. And that night in Montreal, I got a 2. I was like, what is going on here? And it kind of throws you because it's the first time you expect it to always work and it doesn't, and I'm like a deer in the headlights. And I remember what Jerry Seinfeld had said too, is that comedy is not a monologue, it's a dialogue, and the audience has their portion to say.
yeah,
Right, you say your portion, they say theirs. There's nuances in laughs, there's different kinds of laughs, there's different energies in laughs. Sometimes you can tell somebody gets a tongue-in-cheek joke. Sometimes you can tell that, ooh, no, they laughed, but for the wrong reasons. Which
yeah,
was also something that happened in Alberta. I told a joke that was supposed to be a little bit ironic, and they took it
straight
kind of
up,
literal, and it was a bit scary. So you still get the laughs, but a comic can tell it's the wrong kind of
wrong
laugh.
laugh. Yeah,
And so Montreal was like, what's going on? And so I just took my notepad and my pencil and hid back into the green room and just started thinking and thinking. And I realized that in Toronto, and it's kind of the culture of Toronto too, it's busy, it's angry, it's aggressive.
mm-hmm.
And Montreal, joie de vivre is a French phrase for a reason. People, the old thing is that people in Toronto live to work and people in Montreal work to live. Right. And there's this vibe where I was coming at them too aggressively. And people were like, we're all here for a good time. What are you yelling at us for? What are you complaining about, man? Life is good here. We're all here for a good time. We're having some beers with our friends. Like, what are you? And so I changed wording and I dialed back my aggressiveness from a 10 to like a 7. And instead of saying, you know what I hate, you know what makes me angry, I changed it to, do you know what I find weird? You know, it's kind of strange. You know, it's a little peculiar.
Mm-hmm.
And the next night, it worked much better. It didn't get back up to that 9, but it went from like a 2 to a 7. And it was, you know, the lessons of reading the room. And Montreal folks are just, they're happier, a little bit more laid back, a little less stressed out. There's something about it. I don't know what it is, but there's something about it.
Montreal just recently discovered that our water is akin to the quality level of Flint, Michigan. So,
oh, no, maybe they'll turn into a Toronto crowd then.
Well, apparently it's been like that for years. We only just found out. Yeah, the joy, the lead in the water.
It's important to listen to the audience. Is the story there? The moral of the story. Important to listen.
Now you actually though, but you in that story you describe what a Toronto audience is like, what a Montreal audience is like. What is Ottawa and what is Halifax like? What's the flavors that you would?
Ottawa to me is a little bit. The club that we play is insanely good, so it's impossible.
It's incredibly run right well, yeah.
But I still, even within the perfect setup, I consider it conservative, and I don't mean voting at the ballots conservative. I mean, 10 o'clock is late at night.
Right.
We polite people don't talk about politics and sex, you know, and you still can. You still can.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm saying it, and it's a comedy club and people are people. But if Toronto is aggressive and Montreal is happy or laid back, Ottawa is conservative and maybe a little bit uptight.
But what about not just the audiences, but the local comics you've worked there with, because they're the ones who are sort of training the audience slightly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't find a huge difference with Ottawa comics. Maybe I'll say they're a little bit smarter and playful. They're more like a comic you would see on Letterman.
Mm-hmm. Well, because some of them have been doing the late night shows, like John Doerr, and
yeah, silly and smart.
Yeah,
I would say silly and smart is kind of I don't want to boil it down to something so simplistic, right? Yeah. But every place has, Montreal is very, in my experience, is very character driven too. You have a character, right? Daniel Torado had a character. Patterson and Wilner had characters. Not Sugar Sammy. Sugar Sammy. Sugar Sammy. Derek Seguin.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's character driven, and you don't really see that in Toronto. You don't really see it in Ottawa. You don't really see it in Halifax. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in those places, but it's not sort of the prevailing dominant thing.
Exactly. Yeah. It's for me, just to interject about Ottawa. Ottawa was a place that always seemed to reward originality. I don't mean just originality in jokes, but originalities in takes and styles and characters. Like,
yeah, I think
there's a lot more risk taking there.
Yeah.
But a lot of Ottawa comics, when they come to Montreal, are just shocked by how quiet the audiences are.
Right. Yeah.
But it's almost like I think that they might be asking too much of the audiences to follow them along these leaps of logic that some of their jokes take. Yeah. But again, it comes down to, different scenes, the comics teaching the audiences, and the audiences then using that to teach the further, the developing comics.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to boil every scene down to one or two things either, because you'll find everything everywhere. You'll find aggression in Montreal, and you'll find conservatism in Toronto, and you'll find, quirky characters in Calgary, and
Dave Martin's glue guy.
Glue guy, right? There you go, Toronto,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. So everything exists everywhere. I'm not trying to boil it all down, but it just seems to be sort of the prevailing feeling in each scene. There's
Mhm.
a prevailing feeling. There's a vibe, and you don't know that unless you tour, and
Right.
you learn quickly. Things are different. I think small town Nova Scotia, where I am, you go, wow, they really like a guitar and a and a parody song. You know, like, right? And you're like, that's such a different world. Yeah, that's such a different world, and it's only 30 minutes away from the city, and
Yeah.
you're like, wow, this is like every place is the Legion here.
All right. This was the final part of the question was like, what kind of flavor is Halifax developing? Where is it at now? And can you see maybe Andrew's influence on it?
Oh, Andrew's fingerprints are on everything. Um, I think, boy, it's hard to tell, and I don't know if it's maybe because I'm situated here, I'm entrenched in it. It's a little bit harder to tell.
Because you
Uh,
don't have that constant comparison of popping into a new city and seeing the new types or new flavors. This is your normal, so it's
Yeah, it's my normal, and it's different. Like the pop explosion is a little bit more what they call alternative comedy,
Mhm.
right? And then Yuck Yucks is kind of the traditional club comedy, right? And then you've got the open mics where it's a little of everything.
Yeah.
It's a pretty eclectic group, honestly. Here, there's a little bit of everything, and I don't, like I said, I don't do. So I'm not coming off like an expert here, but I don't do a lot of the mics here anymore. I'm mostly doing the pro shows just because I don't have the time or ability to do the mics. So I
Yeah.
lose a little bit there too because I'm not in the mics like a lot of the other guys are. That's probably a better question to ask somebody like Travis Lindsay, who you'll have on, or
Yeah.
Catherine Robertson. They would probably be able to answer that question a little bit better than I could.
We'll cover that when we do the roundtable show, which we still have to determine a date. So go
Yeah,
back to that group message and say what days are good for you and times.
sure.
All right. What do you see moving forward? Have you been doing much of the online stuff?
Did none of it, will not do any of it. I am so there. There is
I've got you in here. I've got you in here.
no. Oh no,
We're
this
meeting you.
but this is not a show.
No, this is not a show.
It's not a show. I'll do
It's a
this.
talk show.
Right.
That's
I'll
what
do this all day long. I'll do this all day. I have no issues with this because I'm not looking for a laugh.
Yeah.
If I'm doing my show, I'm looking for a laugh, and I'm not getting it from a camera. I need, again, like Seinfeld said, it's a dialogue, not a monologue. And
Yeah.
I can't take my stand up and turn it into a monologue. I can't do it. There's about timing, there's rhythm, there's the conversation. It's not you, it's us. And
Yeah.
I can't do a me. Little numbers on the screen is not an audience. Right? I need breathing, living people giving me immediate feedback.
Talking
Again,
about the numbers on the screen. If somebody just wants to say hello to Andrew, Andrew Evans is my guest here on They Talk Funny. Please just write something. I can see you guys are watching. Just say hi, pop in. We'll give you a shout out. Yeah, sorry. Just so you're not doing anything online for comedy shows, but
no,
no.
no. After Andrew passed, I got into a big writing kick.
Mm-hmm.
Where I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote more than I normally do. But the jokes are a little dark and a little personal, so I don't know how well they would do in clubs.
Right. And yeah, the weekend stuff.
Yeah.
I I I had I've recorded a set just because recording all the open mics so I can go back and do it. I recorded an open mic set, very sparse audience, uh, between my mother's death and my father's death. There was a 6-month window, and it was actually, I think it was the day or 2 days after Robin Williams had died.
Oh wow. Oh man, that is a rough 6 months.
Yeah, and I still go back and listen to it just because, like, it just I hit each beat properly, and talking to the other comics, all the other comics, I was up second last. All the other comics were saying we can't get a laugh out of these people. None of these people are laughing, and just to hear it build through my set as I'm going through like the darkest stuff. It just it's I'll share the recording with you at some time. I can't, I don't want to make it public. I was seeing therapy at that time and it wasn't working. Scott McLean says he just didn't want to interrupt, but he's really enjoying.
Oh, it's
So
good.
thank you, Scott. But yeah, that's sometimes it's very cathartic to get that out, even if it's just writing it. Sometimes it's better to be presenting it, just to get that validation from an audience that the emotions you're feeling are genuine and that other
Oh,
people can connect with that.
oh,
So
for sure, and they'll
yeah,
connect with absolutely anything. We've all been through grief,
yeah,
right? We've all found love, grief, anger, happiness. We've all done that, and in jokes, there's some of that everywhere. So, although you may not know what it's like to have a friend commit suicide, you know what it's like to have a friend die. You know what
yeah,
it's like. So there's a connection, and it's up to us to communicate that idea in a way that resonates with strangers,
yes, yeah.
right?
That's
And that takes work.
that it does. It definitely does. There with everything that's happening right now in the world with George Floyd. With by the way, this channel survives off of donations, and I normally I put up my PayPal, but if anyone just wants to make a donation in the name of George Floyd to their Black Lives Matters donation, even the Black Cultural Center in Nova Scotia. If you want to make a donation there, just do that. I just want to put that out there as a reminder of what you can do in your everyday life, to help grow the dialogue that we need to heal not just like the states but our country as well.
Yeah.
Uh, the history of Nova Scotia has got
Yeah.
a lot to speak up from, and I'm a
Maroon,
proud Nova Scotian. But
the Maroons and Africville, and yeah, there's all
yeah,
kinds of stuff.
exactly. Um, and all that needs to be done. And so um, now what do you see is going to be happening with, like, say, the protest in the states? Do you think there is going to be a like there is definitely a movement for social change right now? Do you think it is going to make any steps forward? Do you think it's
Ew. I do. It feels different this time. I've seen similar things happen in the
yeah,
past,
yeah,
similar protests, and Rodney King. I was around for Rodney King. I
yeah,
remember that, and I thought then, oh my God, this is going to lead to some stuff, right? And it didn't.
yeah.
I I really do. This
Without Rodney King, do you think that we would, if there was no Rodney King moment, do you think that we would have had an Obama? Do you think that the steps were made, but just not large enough or permanent enough?
boy, whoa, that's hard to tell. I don't know.
I
That's a
mean, we
good
don't have a
question.
time machine to do the way back on,
It's a
but
good question. I remember comics talking about it. I think maybe it was Chris Rock saying black people and white people saw that video very different. Black people were like, "Yep," and white people were like, "What are cops doing?" Right?
yeah,
And because it was the first time white people had seen it.
yeah,
Black people knew it was going on all the time. All right.
yeah.
And now with everybody walking around with a camera in their pocket, uh,
Hmm.
it becomes a little bit more obvious and in your face. But I think the difference this time is COVID, the lockdown, right? The fact
The
that
amount of people who were unemployed.
nobody's at work, got nothing else to do except get behind a cause. You're not distracted by raising children and getting a TPS report in, and you know getting your final vacation reservations together and booking that hotel. There's two things on the news: Black Lives Matter and COVID, and all the time in the world now for 30% of the population.
Yeah,
And so I think it's going to. I hope I think it's going to actually make change. I really do.
Okay.
Slow, probably slower than we want. Probably slower than we want, but I think it's going to make a difference. And I think you're also going to see, let's say, 10 years from now, you'll see kids that are 10 and 15 and 20 years old now getting in positions, where this was a moment for them. George Floyd was a moment for them, and it made them change their dreams from being, I don't know, a computer scientist or an accountant to being a lawyer or counselor or mayor or something like that.
Yeah, I also one of the scariest things though I'm seeing now is also seeing like white supremacists and white right wing groups now being less afraid of staying, of the light or stepping out of the shadow, and
That's Trump.
it's like they're galvanizing as
Yeah.
well.
Well, they've always been there. And I've always been the person that believes, people, I mean, maybe this is a controversial idea. I don't know. But people used to always say, we got to shut down their websites. We got to shut down their rallies. And I'm like, I want to know where they are. I want to know who they are. I want to know where they are. I want to know where they're going to be, because we're not getting rid of them. You shut down their website, we don't get rid of them. Now they're just talking to your kids or handing out flyers in the streets or something. I want to know where they are.
There was a good article that started in Montreal, but it's been covered nationally of how they target young guys online, or young people online, not just guys, and to get them to start distrusting the words like triggered, and just and doing subtly racist jokes, and then if anyone complains, oh well, it's just a joke,
right?
And I've seen some of that come up in stand up, and people doing stand up, and guys doing like a stupid rape joke where rape is the punchline, and it's like,
yeah,
like I don't believe I don't believe that I do believe that any subject can be done in a joke,
100%.
But the point of view fucking matters.
Absolutely.
Right. And
Carlin, I think, said you can't people don't want you to talk about rape or can't joke about rape. And he goes, you can joke about anything, but it's the point. And he said Elmer Fudd raping one of the other cartoons.
Yeah.
It was Yosemite Sam or whatever. That's funny. Right.
Yeah.
And the way that he did it explained it. It's like, it's not funny to make fun of rape or a woman who has been raped, and rape being a punchline is not funny. It's never funny. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to talk about these things. Now, I never have, because I don't have a reason to. I don't have a joke that I
don't find it
funny. Right. So I would never bring something like that to the stage. But I also, don't want anybody who thinks that they do have something that's funny or an interesting perspective to not be able to do it.
Yeah. At the same time, I'm more than willing to tell somebody that that's not an interesting perspective.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I've done it.
Yeah,
I've done it. I mean, I don't do it on stage. I don't do it on the microphone. But at the back of the room, in the green room, I'll be like, yeah, that's not something you should be doing.
Yeah. But again, it's programming these guys as they're entering puberty, these young people as they're entering puberty, to sort of second guess the liberal ideas that we take as right, as part of Canadian society that we assume, and then they can believe somebody saying there's no systemic racism in Quebec.
I don't know how anybody could ever believe that. I have no
idea. That's the leader of the NDP got ejected for.
Yes, I remember that, and he wouldn't apologize, and I thought that was fantastic. He shouldn't apologize. Apologizing basically just says the same thing. We'll bow down once again. Here, look at us, two middle-aged white guys talking about rape and race, huh?
Yeah, this is we
be talking about it ever.
I think that the angle we're taking on it is at least in the right vector. But again, I should probably put a trigger warning on the last 10 minutes or so of the show. So you've got hope for the future. This is also from knowing you for a good while and being a fan of your comedy for as long as I've known you. The idea that you have hope, right? That speaks volumes to me. You've got good medication. I don't know. You've got good people in your life.
No, I just stopped living in Toronto. Honestly,
Oh, I
I
just realized. I think we just hit the CanCon limit there because we've actually bashed to Toronto. So
no. I remember the first time I worked with Scott Falconbridge, another Montreal guy, right?
yeah,
It was in PEI at a festival there.
he's
And
living in Hamilton now.
oh, is he? He's in Hamilton. Okay,
Yep.
didn't know that. But anyway, first time we met, and we were playing poker, I think, at an after party or something. I don't remember exactly, but we were chatting at the hotel.
Yeah.
And my website at the time was angryandrew.com.
Right.
And he says, "You seem like slightly annoyed, Andrew, to me." Right? And yeah, it was Toronto will do that to you when you grow up in Nova Scotia and move to Toronto, and you see people running up escalators, pushing and shoving on their way to get on a subway when the clock literally says the next one's in 3 minutes. 3 minutes, the next one. Not giving up, guys in suits reading the Financial Times, not giving up their seats to a woman with groceries who's 8 months pregnant and has a toddler with her.
Mhm.
You know, they throw around words like microaggression, but there's I don't know what it is. Micro hate, little things that you go through every single day.
Atmospheric
And
aggression.
yeah, micro atmospheric aggressions, I guess. It was like the at the time when I first moved there, they hadn't shut down the coal plants yet, so it was pollution. There were days where they would tell you if you're old, young, or a compromised immune system, don't go outside. I couldn't see the CN Tower, 25, 30 days a year because of the smog.
Yeah.
People running up escalators, pushing on elevators, people being rude. I mean, not caring about you, not looking you in the eyes, not saying hello or good morning, taking your money before they give you the coffee instead of a little conversation. Like, it weighs on you after 10 or 12 years of that. It really weighs on you. And then you're working so hard to get 600 square feet of living space, that you have to share with somebody, and just everything just builds up and becomes frustrating. And then I come back to Halifax. I have twice the size of place. I'm closer to my dad. The air is clean. People say hello in the streets. Yeah, it's bad for the writing because I got nothing to be angry about and yelling at the world. So my writing has really taken a nosedive. Well, Andrew dying helped. But it kills the writing.
Blessings.
Yeah. It kills the writing to be happy.
Yeah.
But it's good here, so I have hope because it's good here. I might not have that hope if I lived in Toronto.
Yeah.
Maybe my perspective on change would be different if I lived in Toronto. I don't know. I went to Taste of the Danforth 10, 12 years ago, which is, I don't know if you've ever been to it.
It's no, I don't think I was. I lived there for about 18 months.
Okay, so it's a street festival in the summer they have in the Greek part of town.
Yeah.
Where basically everybody sets up booths and offers some of their food, traditionally Greek food, on the streets. Instead of having a dish for $15, you have a little, a kebab or a ear of corn, some ice cream, this kind of stuff, and it attracts 1 million people over a weekend. And it's just a fun little festival, and then it shuts down at, I don't know, 10 at night or 11 at night every night for 3 days or 4 days or however long it runs. And they brought riot police out to right at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or whatever time it was, banging their clubs on their shields. Telling everybody to move. The Taste of the Danforth is over. And I'm like, it literally was 5 minutes after it had shut down. They bring in riot police, and there was no commotion. There was no issue. There was no problem. There was no looting. There was no protesting. It was just people at Taste of the Danforth with their kids, and it was ridiculous. And I was like, what is this about, and that's not something you would see in Nova Scotia. And it
Yeah.
was another thing of just like, where am I?
Yeah, I here. Okay, the very first night of the Black Lives Matter protest that happened coincided with the march against police brutality here in Montreal.
Right,
So it was, the timing worked out, so that happened, um, and that was that night. There was some looting that happened, but
right.
there was only two stores I ever saw mentioned in, and it was so kind of Montreal. So one was a sex shop, had its windows broken in, and people ran off with dildos. Uh,
Wow.
it's-
Oh. See,
the,
Montreal's a town
the
of lovers.
yeah, it's a
People in good
COVID
mood.
COVID thirst is actually it's a term that you've heard people saying, oh, they're thirsty. We call it the COVID thirst. The love doctor, he coined that phrase. The other place was actually Steve's music shop,
Yep,
uh,
I know Steve's. Yep.
which is famous. And the manager of the shop just went, well, I'm not overly concerned. They're just guitars. They're not lives.
Wow.
You know,
Wow, good for him.
and he's saying, like, we had everything set up, we had everything locked and secured away. It got broken into, but it's like no one has knelt on my neck to get it. None of my staff were hurt, uh,
Wow.
and so they came out very clearly in favor. And that was the only night that we had the riots. We've had longer riots, bigger riots from hockey in this city. So yeah, this is the change is happening, and yeah, I like you. I have hope. So
Good. Well, that's good to hear too. I think we had a conversation about was it United Nations and the Montreal Police Force about 10 or 15 years ago.
ooh, did we?
Yeah. It was you that brought it up because of you, the Montreal guy, and
Yeah,
bringing up some facts to me, and I was like, oh really? I didn't know that.
yeah. The Montreal police do not have a great record. Somebody recently, I don't know the truth of this, but somebody threw a stat out saying that 70% of Montreal police officers are not from Montreal.
Really?
They're ex hockey players from the regions, so they come pursuing hockey to Montreal. They end up becoming cops, and that's male and female.
Wow. Now
And
I know some friends that have joined the RCMP, and they'll train them elsewhere, right?
yeah,
They'll get them somewhere else, and I always asked why they did that, and it's so that they don't have to, arrest friends or family or run into some kind of a conflict of interest. But over the years, I've come to think that you kind of want people from your town policing your town because they know your people, they know your neighborhoods,
yeah,
that's who you want.
yeah. It's I live I live in two apartments because
Look at you, Love Doctor.
well,
One for Love Doctor, one for you.
one for my wife and one for me. It's is the way it's, so she has her apartment. Fits her and her two daughters perfectly. I'm just sort of shoehorned in here on occasion.
Beauty.
And then I have my own place. My own place is not in the greatest of neighborhoods, but I'm trying to think how many years ago. Like when I first got there, there was a beat cop, and he walked through and he knew all the neighborhood characters. And then at least for probably maybe even 6 years ago, they moved that to patrol cars.
Okay.
We don't know these cops, right? They
Right.
don't know anyone. They don't know anyone in the community. They never stop and talk to any of the shop owners,
Yeah.
and it's just a completely different vibe.
I think we're going to get back to that.
Yeah.
I do. I think that's what one of these things that are going to come back is community policing. I think we're going to see that.
Hmm.
I'm really hoping for it.
Yeah.
Now you touched on something that I get shit for. So I've been with my lady for about 6 years now.
Okay.
We don't live together.
Yep.
I got my place, she's got hers, and everybody from parents to friends. Why? More rent. Why wouldn't you do that? How can you do that? Why don't you?
There was recently a documentary called "A Partners" about a couple that's been like together for 40 years, and they live separately. They live close enough that they will cook together
Right.
at one person's place, and then they'll go to the other person's place to eat and spend the evening or etc.
We're that kind of close too.
Yeah,
We're
and
just I don't know, 4 or 5 minute drive away.
yeah, and it's practical. I mean, sometimes in a relationship you need your own space. So not
Sometimes,
everybody. Well, you want to be together, at least to call it a relationship.
sure.
Uh, there was I think it was here in Quebec. There was a elderly couple. They were both in their 80s who lived apart, but they were effective. I think they were married. I don't think it was common law, but they lived separately. And the husband went over to visit the wife, and then the cops burst down the back door, uh, and they got fined for breaking quarantine. And it was
Oh,
like the only people either of them were seeing was each other, and it was when they were making these trips to see each other.
oh wow.
Uh, look, I think I really hope that we're at a point that we that relationships do not have to fit a certain structure. Like I'm
Your
horrible at it. I say guys when I meet people. Well, it's not.
comic structure and the norm and status quo doesn't mean anything to us.
Yeah, but it's the thing is, as a society, if we're going to be accepting of genders or orientations or whatever is out there, like I personally, I don't care. I don't, I think maybe like living arrangements, if you need to say that you are a certain orientation or a certain gender to build your self-confidence and your self-identity when you're at doubting or when you're not feeling confident in yourself, then do that to help yourself. But I don't think you need I don't think anyone should be saying everybody has to fit into a certain mold. And this is something that works for us. That obviously works for you.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think it's the reason it works.
Yeah. And it's
I
we
don't
have
know
our
why it's not
privacy.
more common.
Yeah.
You have a
I
chance. You have a chance to miss each other. You have a chance um, to have your own time, but you also have a chance to just like, oh, I wish she was here, or I wish he was there, or it would be, oh, I got to call her. There's something about um, true separation that makes
Yeah.
you appreciate what you have.
Yeah. And also it helps you realize where you are in your relationship. If you're not thinking about your partner, right? If you're not feeling that missing, then maybe it's not a relationship,
Yeah.
right?
I just know when you're in the same room together too long, it's why do you breathe so loud? Why do you eat so loud? Why do you snore so loud? You got your own place. Those bullshit things don't enter your head.
Yeah, yeah. It's damn it. I wish I could hear her breathing. And that's the point when you need to go visit.
Yeah.
Uh, it's yeah, the love doctor has a couple good sayings on these things, like like you need to wake up thinking about how you can make your partner happy, and they better be doing the same for you.
So do
Uh,
you get shit for it from? I mean, your comic friends probably don't give a fuck, but normal people, do they give you shit about it?
I don't think I have that many normal people in my life. Um, my family, like I'm divorced. This is my second marriage,
Right.
so my family is just happy that I'm happy and that she's such the incredible person she is. Um, this is, I don't, I get a lot of quizzical looks like what? And yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
something that works.
Yeah.
Whether or not we will eventually maybe move in together, I don't know. I mean, she's got a great apartment, but there's no room in it for a fourth person.
How long have
So,
you been together?
uh, So we're coming up on 5 years.
Okay, about the same as me.
Yeah, three or four officially, I guess. But yeah, we met about 5 years ago.
Okay, yeah, and yeah, I'll do a comedy show. I mention it or something, and then people will talk to her afterwards. Helen will be there with me, and they'll be like, "When's he going to put a ring on it?" Or "When's he going to do this?" Or "Oh my God, don't let him get away with any more of this." And I'm like, "Why?
Yeah.
Why? What do you mean get away with?"
As long as you make sure that she feels confident in the relationship, and as long as you feel confident in the relationship, and that's all that's really needed. I mean, we got married. We didn't bother to tell the government because, like, why spoil her credit rating? But it's
Or why spoil hers?
yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I said. It's but yeah, that's the thing. It's we just wanted to say in front of our friends and family that, yeah, we're making this commitment to each other. We
Right.
might not be living together. We might not, uh, might not be a conventional marriage as far as societal programming is concerned. But societal programming to me has always been a dirty word.
Hmm.
So
Do you,
it's
do you
always.
do you get a lot of material from it?
I think I get more material from the Love Doctor.
Yeah. See, for me, anything that's good isn't material, and this is good, so it's not in the act.
Yeah,
Right?
it's
It's the things that make
well.
you happier or put you in a good place. They're hard to joke about.
I think what might not be classified as good is people's reaction to it, and I think that could be a source of material for you.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah,
I never even thought of that as something to talk about.
yeah.
Mm.
All right, I think
Get
I
the
just gave
wheels.
you a writing
You
project.
did.
Yeah,
You did. Got the wheels spinning.
and
Wow.
we've been an hour and 16 minutes already.
Yeah.
So this is might be the longest They Talk Funny that I've ever done.
Oh, really? I
Uh,
told you I'd get chatty with you, old
yeah,
friend.
yeah, yeah. We should save some to do for the Halifax Roundtable. And I'm just gonna put it back up there again as your YouTube channel. Oh, it is already up there. See, I'm blind. I'm blind and forgetful. I'm getting old, Andrew. I'm getting old. So it's youtube.com, Andrew Evans Comedy. So you get to see clips. I think, is your full comedy now there?
I think so. Yeah.
So if you want to hear the canned laughter, that is there. You can also search for Andrew Evans on Facebook. That is the primary way to get a hold of Andrew at any point in time. Are you semi-hidden though, or not?
Yeah. I mean,
Andrew's been very much about privacy for a long time, and I know Zuckerberg is a necessary evil for our
yeah.
industry.
And I don't know. It's yeah. I find about comedy, it's like you want people to come to your show.
Yeah,
You want to sell tickets to your show. You want to put out an album. You want people to buy it. You want those things. But I don't want to tell people to go do those things. So
yeah. I know the feeling. I
I
know the
can
feeling.
I can do it with Doug Stanhope. I can tell people go buy his album. You'll love it. I can't
Yeah.
do that. I can't tell people to get mine.
Where is yours available? I'll
I
tell
don't
them.
have one. That's what
Okay.
I can't do those kinds of things. It was awkward
You,
even just uploading that Comedy Now special. I was prouder of the fact that I got asked to do one than I
right.
was that of it.
Yes. Yeah. I get that. All right, we're gonna do the Halifax Comedy Roundtable at some point. We got to think about who we can have. I do the what I use here is a thing called StreamYard. So it makes streaming easy. I'm going to be doing a stream later this week about just get streaming. The next They Talk Funny is I've got Ben McLean. Are you familiar with Ben?
No,
Ben is a Nova Scotia guy. He actually worked at the Canadian Embassy in Germany, and then he quit that to do stand up, and he's based in Berlin, and he's also works as a flight attendant. So he's based in Berlin.
interesting.
I
And
I
he's a
get to.
Scotia guy.
He's a Nova Scotia guy.
Ah,
Ben McLean. How Nova Scotian can you be?
yeah.
One of the first shows I did in Berlin was his show, which was Christopher Street Day show, Christopher Street Day Week Comedy Festival show, which is Yeah, it's that was their gay pride weekend, and I got to or week, and I got to do that comedy show, which was it's an absolute treat. And so he's a funny guy. He's done. I'm trying to think the UK talent contest that he was part of. Oh, the Brady Bunch is behind you. That looks like a Zoom call, which is so much. We're not doing Zoom.
I prefer.
But yeah, so anyone watching on YouTube, just hit the subscribe button so you can find out about all the things. So They Talk Funny, the Love Doctor live streams, and Battlecom all are coming out of here, as well as the occasional other live streams and comedy videos, whatever's uploaded. Andrew, hoping you're keeping healthy, and we got to set a date for the Halifax Comedy Roundtable.
Absolutely. This is fun. It was nice to catch up this way.
Yeah. It was good seeing you and hearing you too.
Yeah. We'll have to, I am looking forward to doing it again. That'll be fun. And I guess we'll let Scott McLean come too, since he chatted. He was the only one that commented. So I guess we'll invite him to the roundtable now.
All right. We do have a limit of 10. But we would definitely think about doing that. I'm going to hit the end broadcast button. And as that winds down, we'll just put up your picture again. Here it is. Ending broadcast.